obviously you're an independent wrestler. Coronavirus had to affect you somewhat. How has it been? Have new bookings been creeping up on you?
Yeah. And not in the same way it was before this whole thing happened, right? Like there were a lot of shows. My schedule was packed. It was nonstop. And then probably late June, early July, I started to do like one show a week, and then it's turned into two shows and then three shows. And I had to like up to six shows one of the weeks. But for now, it's kind of getting back to a busier schedule. It's like 2 to 3 shows a week now. A lot of them are no fans though. A lot of it's just for the streaming sites or the TV that we're doing. And then I'll have a few shows here and there that have like limited capacity fans. So it's definitely different, but I think we're ramping up to get back to whatever normal is again.
For sure. And the thing that surprised me right when I started researching you, I found out that you were a football player, right?
Yeah.
So I've noticed with wrestlers, there's been a decent amount that have transitioned over to wrestling. Do you see any transitionability that like the hitting aspect or anything that helped you with wrestling?
Yeah, physically and mentally. So this business is not like for the faint-hearted. It's a lot of hard hitting. You're gonna get hurt. You're gonna get smacked. And so if you don't have that toughness, you're gonna get walked on and you're gonna get passed by. So that was definitely something that helped prepare me. The physical aspects of football, and then also like the team mentality to where this is an individual sport, but in some respects it is a team sport as well, because you need other people that are going to bring the lower guys up, or those lower people need to carry their weight to be a bigger part of the team. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of trying to do things for certain promotions, and within that teamwork there have to be leaders that step up, and that doesn't always have to be vocally, but that's lead by example. That's bust your ass. That's do things that are going to make people follow you. And so it definitely helped me in that respect as well.
And were you always into wrestling, or was it after football you decided to get into officially training?
So yeah, when I was younger, I watched it kind of, as I grew up through school, stopped watching it because I just had so many things going on. I was trying to play like 3 sports at a time. And, once you're that age, you're interested in girls and you're trying to get your schoolwork in. And so kind of lost it there for like 8 or 9 years, and then fell back in love with it in like college. And, after college, went to the workforce, and I realized that wasn't for me. I realized that, this was like what society was telling us was the right thing to do. And, it is the right thing for a lot of people, and a lot of people love what they do. And I just I didn't have that passion or fire with going out into what I was doing. And so time kind of crept up on me, and I realized like, it was going to be kind of a crap or get off the pot moment to when I was going to jump into wrestling. And so, I finally did it, and I haven't looked back.
And was there a specific reason you chose to go to reality of wrestling, or was it just like the closest one nearby?
So, yeah, I mean, like, I'm blessed that it just so happened to be in the city or around the city that, I lived in. And it just so happened that it was run by a 2-time WWE Hall of Famer. So, that's just God telling me that this is where I should be. And so, I jumped in there, and I did my research as well. And there are plenty of reputable schools all over the nation, but you can't beat reality wrestling. You can't beat the training, the promotion, Booker T. It's just the like combo of everything that really drew me to it.
So have you been personally trained by Booker T?
Yeah. He's the head trainer. So he's a lot of fine tuning. He does a lot of psychological training, and he likes to test people, on his shows and in training. So it's something that gets you prepared for that higher level.
Yeah, I'm surprised because you see him doing everything. The podcast, he's running the promotion attached to reality wrestling. That you see him still jumping on WWE TV occasionally. He's all over the place.
Yeah.
And what was your first match like? Do you recall any specific memories from it?
Um, shoot, not really. I mean, it it was cool to be out there. It was cool to perform. I love the live feedback from the audience. So, I've always been drawn to that, being in sports my whole life, and I've always liked, live events. So to be front and center for something like that was a pretty cool feeling. There are a little bit of nerves, obviously, but you know, there still are. It's just instead of like, oh my gosh, I hope I don't screw this up, it's, man, I'm excited to get out there. And so that kind of changes, the more comfortable you get. And, I'm just excited every time I step in that ring.
And I think late 2019, you won the television championship. What was that like?
It was fun. In August of 2019, yeah, I ended my feud with Brendan Steen in a street fight, like a Falls Count Anywhere match. And that feud really kind of helped me, like, figure out who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do within the wrestling business. And that's has a lot to do with Brendan Steen, the guy I was across the ring from for 5 matches, and Booker T, obviously, give me the opportunity there. But, not a lot of people know this, but they used to call me Will Lockhart. That used to be my name. And that taping in August, not only did I get the reality or wrestling television title, but I also finally got to use my name now, Will Allday. And that was really the biggest victory for me, because I'd been fighting for that for a long time. And so, that means more to me than any championship.
How were you approached by WWE because I was surprised looking this up. An indie wrestler on WWE TV, not necessarily losing, because you won by disqualification against Kurt Hawkins.
Yeah, undefeated in WWE right now as an unsigned talent. I don't know why they're not knocking on my door right now. When WWE comes into town, local wrestlers try to get there, and if they have like any work for them to do, they bring them on. And so that happened to be the case. And this was, I think, like 5 months into me actually like wrestling. So it was very, very new into my career, but Booker does a good job of preparing people for TV and for performing. And reality of wrestling's run just like a Monday Night Raw. So it's almost like I was overly prepared. So I was super, super excited because it was in my hometown of Houston. It was in the Toyota Center. There were 20,000 people there, and I get to wrestle for WWE on Monday Night Raw. Like, if you're not getting in this business to do something like that, then I don't know what you're doing. So it was absolutely exciting. And like I said, Booker prepares his guys very, very well. And I was just lucky to have been, one of his guys under his tutelage.
And did you have any big inspirations for when you were growing up? Obviously, you went away from it for a couple of years, but were there any huge people you looked up to?
Steve Austin, for sure. That was the first match I ever saw, was Austin versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 14. And I just was instantly like gravitating towards him because I loved like that pure aggression. I loved the attitude. I loved, his like macho manliness. That was something I aspired to be. And so, those types of characters are really what I gravitate towards.
And for my final question, where would you want to be in 5 years? Do you have a specific promotion, specific title you want to hold?
In 5 years, that I don't know, man. I want to be in one of the top tier promotions, whether that be WWE, AEW, or New Japan right now. Who knows what's going to come up in 5 years? Who knows what's going to fall? This year we weren't planning for everything to stop, for the world to stop turning, but here we are. So, I just want to be on a platform and stage that is that top tier promotion. And I want to be one of the guys who the producers and the writers have stock in and who they have trust in, because, that's where my goals are. That's where my path is leading. And that's, what I want to do with my life.
And I want to thank you so much. This has been an honor. I'm trying to keep it quick. Where can people find you?
Yeah. You guys can find me on YouTube or any of the social medias at I am Mr. Allday. It's easy. It's just like it sounds. Don't make it harder than it has to be. Go ahead and click the follow button and, let me know what you like. Let me know what you don't like. I'd love to hear it.
All right, so independent wrestler, we're starting to come back where more promotions are no longer locked down. How are you staying busy when they were?
Well, I've been hitting the gym. Those were closed for a while, but reopened, I think, in May or June. Changed my diet, spent time with my family, my daughter, raised chickens and ducks, and a garden, and just, some DIY projects, really.
Yeah, and I was listening to another interview you were doing. You were saying the duck eggs taste very similar to the chicken eggs, right?
Yes, they're just bigger. It's bigger yolk. It's got a more intense egg flavor. So I tried to make a 3 duck egg omelet, and I had to choke it down with hot sauce. So I have to cut the duck eggs with 3 chicken eggs for breakfast every day.
And when you had your first match back, you did lose the title, but overall, how was the match? Did you feel any rust, or how was that?
I didn't feel any rust like I was kind of worried about, but I did get to work out the night before in a ring at the arena, so that worked out well. But I felt fantastic. I mean, Derek Neal is a very fierce competitor in independent wrestling. He's another longtime vet. He's been wrestling for 17 years, kind of under the radar for far too long. And a wrestler like that really brought out the best in me. Unfortunately, both times it wasn't enough. But I'd wrestle him old school days. I'd wrestle him 5 nights out of the week. It'd be like a day off. Man, he's great. But maybe would beat him next time.
And the belt has been famous. It is called Humong Gold. What was your first reaction when you did see it?
Holy crap, that's huge. I want to hold it because I remember when I first saw it, I wasn't really back into wrestling yet. I was just at New South doing commentary, helping out backstage and whatnot. And I remember seeing it for the first time, and the first champion at that time that held it was Odinson. So this huge, muscled up Viking dude with this crazy beard and tattoos. I was like, this belt looks perfectly normal on this behemoth. So I remember holding it for the first time, backstage. I was like, maybe I will hold this one day. Probably not, is what I was thinking, but it'd be cool.
Yeah, and you were talking about originally you were getting trained for like $20 a week, and it was I think you said he was the limo driver for Sid Vicious at a Halloween Havoc.
So the legend goes, yes.
How long were you trained until you had your first match?
Not long enough. I think I just was training for 3 months, so probably like 12 sessions, and then I show up and it's like, hey, I think you're ready for a match with me and my tag partner, another guy I was working with at the time. And now, I was training with another guy. So I guess we were as ready as we were supposed to be. We know how to fall down. That's about it.
And you've gone by Cabana Man Dan for a while. Was there a certain moment when you realized you started to pick up momentum, or was it more gradual?
It always feels gradual. But for real, pretty much like 2019, maybe late 2018. 2019 was like super busy. I know that this year has kind of been, it is what it is, but I feel more momentum in what few months that we've been actually allowed to do shows and wrestle and all that. I feel more momentum now than I did even being gone like every weekend in 2019. Like, I don't know. It's weird. I don't know.
And as someone that wrestles barefoot, was there any extra hurdles that you had to accomplish that some other people didn't have to think about?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, a lot of people were like, wow, it must be weird wrestling barefoot. And I think, wow, it must be weird having to wear boots. So I haven't really had any issues. I mean, I've had a broken toenail, and then like I've rolled an ankle one time on somebody else's fault. But other than that, I prefer it.
Yeah. And it's part of New South Wrestling. Is that the name of the promotion?
Yes.
Okay. So have you wrestled in any other regions, and have you noticed any huge differences from region to region?
Absolutely. I mean, like the locker room is different. The crowd is different. They want different things, or they're used to other things. But that's the main two things. I mean, the way to get better is to be in other locker rooms where you're not like the best person in the locker room, because that's your opportunity to learn every time. If you're the best person on a show, you got to find another show. Otherwise, you're going to be the same person you were the whole time. You got to know your crowd. If you're up in the Northeast and you're wrestling at like a CZW type show or IWA Mid-South where the crowd loves blood and guts. I mean, you gotta bring it. Or you go completely opposite of that, and you do something totally different, and they're gonna think you stand out. So if you just know your audience is a big thing.
And what was I'm sure you have a bunch of favorite moments, but does one moment stick out when you were champion that is your favorite?
I think like a good moment that stuck out to me wasn't really a match, but when Derek Neal won the Haas tournament back in March this year, and we had the standoff where he's in an orange jacket, I'm in an orange jacket because I won it in 2019, and I had the belt, and he was just blowing a gasket, and then the crowd starts throwing garbage and streamers into the ring. It was a really special moment to like. That's what really kicked off that feud. We didn't know that was going to be our last show, my last show for 5 months. So that was kind of a crazy point to leave it off. But then we had all this time. You really can't be at shows to build up a program with somebody. You just got to take to social media and Twitter and videos and all this other stuff. And I missed a couple shows coming back because I wasn't ready to come back because of COVID. So we had to keep stuff fresh by just sending hate tweets to each other, and it worked. I mean, people really liked the feud because it was really drawn out, but that wasn't really the intent. But it worked out well.
And was that natural for you to translate over to social media, or was it a little bit challenging to first get?
It's kind of weird because when I started in 2001, there was no social media other than maybe MySpace, and there was no Twitter, no Facebook. I mean, Facebook came around. I wasn't in wrestling at that time, very sparingly. But as far as like getting back into it in 2016 to now, I mean, it's just as important of what you do in the ring. It's just extending your brand to people that aren't in Alabama. I mean, it's how you become nationwide instead of regional, and instead of nationwide, you're global. So I mean, that's the way to reach people.
And you said in coming back in 2016, did you take time off?
Yes, I took 6 years off. My last match before that was in December 2010. I suffered like, I wouldn't really even say an injury looking back at it now, but I had herniated discs in my neck that was causing nerve to be pinched. It caused my right hand to go numb, and from my elbow down was tingly. So I was stuck with a hand that was not functional for a long time, and I had to go to the chiropractor 3 times a week, get adjusted, laser therapy, and spinal decompression therapy, where they sat me on a table, hooked me up to a machine, and the machine would pull my head off my shoulders to relieve the pressure. So thankfully, I haven't had any problems with it coming back, and I'm wrestling more now than I ever did in the first 10 years of my career.
Yeah, I was doing my research. It was just, I was watching some of your matches. I think the one that stuck out was against Kyle the Beast for me, or KTB. I loved that. And I was just surprised doing more research how you weren't in a higher promotion. So what would be like your pitch? Like, what makes you different from other wrestlers?
Well, the things that make me different is because I pay attention to detail. That's like if you watch that match with KTB, I'm wrestling the match like I'm a true underdog versus this monster guy, and I have to like earn everything that I do on somebody like him. And I don't know, I just have an older school mentality on stuff and just more mature outlook on things. And my job is to make sorry, my dog stole my shoe. My job is to not only make my opponent look the best that he can be, so when it's time for the flip-flop chops and your comebacks and stuff, I'm giving 110% because now it's my time. I've taken all this damage. It's just like in a fighting game. You're getting beat up, and it fills up your bar. And then when it's time to unleash like a special attack, you're going full force. So I don't know if that's really much of an elevator pitch, but there's not a lot of barefoot wrestlers. I'm an okay talker. If it's in a live crowd, I can do all right. If it's a tape thing, just give me some. I'm coachable, and I've got 15 years of in-ring experience. Been around wrestling for 20 years, and a lot of people that are overnight successes are not overnight at all. And I think it's just a matter of time before, especially lately. people tell me I've been good for a long time, which is great, but I haven't really looked the part. You know, I'm 5'4", 5'3". I've got to get in better shape, and that's what my focus is. And someone just asked me this question the other day that, you know, everything you do is so good. What do you think is keeping you from reaching the next level? And I said, I don't know what's keeping me, but it's about being ready for the call at all times. And, you know, I invested in some TV ready gear. I've invested money in that. I've invested money in myself, diet, exercise, supplements, just to really look the part. And, you know, I watch wrestling every day, even now. I'm watching wrestling. So I just try to bring all the knowledge that I can and just be whatever somebody needs me to be. And that's what I can do.
I totally agree. You started off talking about the old style, and you have a nice mixture, in my opinion. And I'm not trying to just, you know, boost you all on, but it was.
I see what you're doing.
Yeah, it was the match. I feel like nowadays people always talk about it like it's like not that realistic in some ways. Like some people just like you get hit by a huge move, all of a sudden you're up moving again in 30 seconds. And I totally agree. That's what I think it's a big thing. And what kind of sets you apart, but also you're talking about not overnight successes necessarily overnight. Like Orange Cassidy, he was doing his whole gimmick in Shikara for 9 years before AEW finally gave him a shot. So I totally understand what you're meaning.
Yeah.
And then you were talking about obviously TV ready and stuff. Do you have a certain goal in mind at the moment? If you want to share it, if not, totally okay.
Well, I mean, you know, if every wrestler's goal is to be a superstar, I would think. Every wrestler's goal is to be the champion. You know, I'm not quite like extremely young. You know, I'm 35. I've got a lot of knowledge. Whether it's, you know, I just feel like my goal is a contracted wrestling job, whether it's performing or helping the next group of wrestlers on the come up as far as a training or coaching aspect. That's also something I'm trying to groom myself and get ready for, you know, a few years down the road. Not yet, but, you know, I'm one of the trainers at New South. We've started a training school recently. So I help train some young folks in Alabama. And then very few people know about this, but I had an opportunity at the time to be a coach for the Wrestle Factory in Chikara. But between COVID and everything that went down, that obviously isn't going to happen. But the fact that it could have happened means that somebody else thinks I can do it. So that's a good thing.
For sure. And you were mentioning also being an announcer. If you got the opportunity, would you be open to being an announcer?
Yeah. I mean, obviously what I would want to do is be a performer in some sort of way, you know, whether that's in the ring or a referee or an announcer. You know, it takes more than just two people wrestling in the ring to make a wrestling show. In a wrestling company for sure.
And I don't want to take up too much of your time. This has been awesome. Where can people find you?
You can find me like you did on Twitter at Cabana Man Dan, on Instagram at cabana.man.dan, and then I also have a Facebook fan page. But I interact most on Instagram and Facebook, or Instagram and Twitter. That's the best ways to find me. And then Pro Wrestling Tees, of course, Cabana Man Dan.
You're working with New Japan, it's Lion Break, Collision, and Championship Wrestling of Hollywood right now. But what was the point when you realized you were officially going to start pursuing wrestling and start training?
So right now I'm working with, you know, like you said, New Japan's over here in America, as well as, you know, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and Primetime Live, which is a partnership with NWA. And I started wrestling in 2014, and I think that it was this last year when I was, you know, on my way out of the military, because for those of you that don't know, I did 10 years in the Marine Corps. And when I felt like I was, you know, ready to leave that career and pursue what I've always wanted to do, which is professional wrestling and acting, I decided that, you know, this year was a good time. I had just finished 10 years in the military, and I thought that, you know, things were going really well for me professionally in the ring. I had just had, you know, done work with Impact. I had, you know, done some little things with WWE, and then I had my New Japan tryout. in the fall, and it was just perfect timing. I was like, now's the time to really pursue this thing. I had just booked a movie with John Morrison, The Speed of Time. I went to go film that with him, and I did all the stunts there. So professionally, everything that I wanted to do as far as where I wanted to go with life after the military was going well, and I thought it was the perfect time. And I'm blessed that, things picked up with New Japan. I got the call after my tryout, and they wanted to use me, and I've been pretty much part of their a big part of their New Japan Strong Weekly show since the start of it, and I'm just grateful for that.
And I wasn't sure how to fit this in, but I want to seriously thank you for your service.
Oh, awesome, bro. No worry about it.
All right, so the day of a match, how do you prepare for it? Do you have any like rituals that you do to like get your mind in the space you need?
Yeah, I always work out in the morning before, but it's not as intense of a workout as I do the days prior. It's a nice little workout to warm up the body, get the blood flowing. I eat good. And then before every match, like I said, I started training in 2014, August, and I made my debut in October of 2014. So 3 months of training, I made my debut. And as I was getting ready to go out for my first match ever, I was going through my gear bag, getting dressed, obviously. And I found one of my daughter's pacifier in my gear bag. And at the time, she was 6 months almost. And I was just like, how did this, pacifier get in here?
Yeah.
And so like I grabbed it, I said a prayer, and I went out. And I've had that pacifier in my gear bag. I've changed plenty of gear bags, but the pacifier, I've had it since then. So before every match, I always grab it, say a prayer to make sure that, I get in there and get out safely, no injuries, nothing like that. And it's my daughter's pacifier, and her name is Khaleesi. She's 6. She was obviously named after Game of Thrones, and on the pacifier, it's a pacifier that has the picture of a little dragon on it. So it was just, crazy that was the pacifier that got stuck. So I've had it in my gear bag since, and I never take it out.
And you were saying you did a few things with WWE where you used as an extra. How did that come to be?
I was used as an extra several times. I had a tryout match before SmackDown, the 20th anniversary of SmackDown. And the first thing that I did, I delivered Alexa Bliss coffee on the Moment of Bliss. It was her and Bailey, and she like smacked the coffee, and it almost hit me and stuff like that. And then later on that day, I ended up being Goldberg's security guard for Goldberg's walkout. I did that. Then I did a little thing where they had me as a fan with somebody else for the Shane McMahon and Kevin Owens ladder match when Kevin Owens finally beat him and sent Shane away when he was doing the whole best of the world gimmick. They had me there. And yeah, I've done a couple of No Way Jose's conga lines and stuff like that. So just like a little bit of extra work here and there and stuff like that. I got to work with them when they came to LA. I got to work with them in Texas, and it was a good time. I had fun, and then with Impact, I made my debut with Impact last summer, and it was in the X Division match. 5-way, it was me, Ace Austin, Trey Miguel, Drake Chris, and Adrian Quest, and we battled it out for the X Division Championship. So that was cool, making my debut for a prestigious title like that. And then obviously, now with New Japan, that's just been rocking and rolling with me.
And with the Impact card, I was looking at it last night. You had big names like Scott Steiner on that. What was that like to be part of an event like that?
It was called Unbreakable, and it was pretty monumental for me in my career. It was a big day for me. I was going through a lot of things personally in life. And when I got the call that I was gonna be part of the show, I was, it was like a pick me up, and it was something I needed at that moment in my life. I thought that I was, more things were gonna come from that with Impact. But obviously everything happens for a reason. And it was cool. I think the main event was like Sammy and Tessa at the time. You had Chris Bay was on the show. The North was on the show, Willie Mack, Rick Swann. Like it was a fun show. It was a cool locker room, lots of good talent there. It was my second time getting in the ring with Ace Austin. I've wrestled Adrian Quest plenty of times, and it's my first time with Trey Miguel and Drake. And it was just a good time, man. It was good atmosphere, good vibes. The crowd was awesome, and I was very, very proud of myself that day. And I think that everybody that watched saw my performance, and I couldn't have done a better job, I don't think.
And for being part of the Lion Break Collision, that is like, it's a branch off of New Japan. So do they ever plan to integrate you over with the main promotion?
I don't know. That's all on New Japan. All I can do is work hard, continue to grind, and just participating, as everybody saw, Lions break crown, my first tournament ever. You know, I eliminated Barrett Brown. Then I went to the semifinals. I took Blake Christian out, and as you just saw this past weekend, you know, I was in the finals with Clark Connors. And even though I didn't win, and Clark Connors had his hand raised at the end of the day, and he was crown champ, I felt like I showed out. I felt like I gave it my all. I felt like everybody watching at home realized that, and they saw that I could compete with the best. Since making my debut in New Japan, I stepped in the ring with TJ Perkins, and ever since then, you know, battles with Rocky Romero, battles with a lot of the young lions and the up and comers that the show has, you know. And for everybody tuning in, you see guys like Bullet Club on the card. You see Jay White, you see Kenta, you see Jeff Cobb, you see Juice, you see Rocky Romero, you see all these guys, you know. So I do believe that this is becoming one of the most popular Friday night shows. And I do believe that eventually, hopefully, you know, if I continue to show my worth, that I will be going to Japan and wrestling out there. That's a goal of mine, and I'm not going to stop till I get it, you know. And with the locker room full of guys like PJ Black, Fred Rosser, it's inevitable that sharpen iron sharpen, you know. And so we'll see where that takes me.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not even like a minor league or whatever, because you see the roster and it's unbelievable just how much talent they really occurred over for the Lions break. But moving off of that, what was your first tattoo?
Oh, my first tattoo, I got USMC tattooed here when I joined the Marine Corps. Then when I became a drill instructor, I got my drill instructor tattoo here. And so I felt like I didn't need 2 Marine Corps tattoos. So I got the USMC covered up by the Spider-Man tattoo right here. So I actually don't even have my first tattoo anymore. I was 18 years old. I was smaller, so it was USMC, and it looked a lot bigger on my arm. But obviously, as I grew, it got smaller. My arms got bigger, one or the other, and so I got it covered up.
And what has your overall experience been like wrestling during a pandemic? Have you felt safe the whole time?
Yeah, I think New Japan and Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and Primetime Live have done an amazing job at keeping us safe, keeping us out of harm's way. They've ensured that, you know, we get COVID tested, that we remain 6 feet apart. We have masks on. There's hand sanitizer everywhere. And I felt safe. I felt like the boys have kept it safe. And I think that, you know, just being able to get in the ring and do what I love to do in a time like this while other people can't is a blessing. So I don't take it for granted as well. And I just can't wait to continue to keep doing this thing. And hopefully the world comes back to normal. We can get back to, you know, independent wrestling and audiences and things like that.
For sure. And in your Instagram bio, I saw you had writer in the bio.
Yeah.
What do you write? And if you want to share anything, I'd love to hear what you have been writing.
So aside from wrestling, aside from being in the military, I'm an actor and a stuntman. I just finished shooting a commercial with a national commercial for this company a couple weeks ago. I have had a few callbacks and auditions for major parts like that. But when you say writing, I like to write my own screenplays, my own scripts, shoot my own projects, come up with my own stunts, my own fight scenes. And I shoot it all. Right now, we're in post-production for a film I just wrote called Joe Riv, which is about a veteran who was in a top secret mission. He had to be considered KIA for 3 years. And so his family, his fiance, everybody has thought he's been dead, but he has to come back home to avenge the death of his sister, who's killed in the club, unfortunately. And so I play Joe Riv, who's the main character. I wrote it, my friend Miko directed it, but I produced it. And it's just nonstop action, a story about a hero that one can relate to, who just loves his family and is a man of honor and a man of integrity. And I did that. I wrote a couple of short films for my daughter. And just like projects like that, you know, I'm actually in the process of writing another one right now. And I just like to stay creative, stay productive. You know, the LA is so big, there's so much talent, so many people are trying to be the next Hollywood star. So auditions are slim and roles are slimmer. And, you know, I'm fortunate enough that I have amazing agents that get me a lot of auditions and get my daughter a lot of auditions as well. But when I'm not working, I want to keep my toolbox sharp, you know, for lack of a better term. So I like to write my own projects and shoot it with amazing people out here that become my friends.
For sure. And where's that going to be shown? Is it going to be on platforms? Or?
Yeah. The plan is once it's finished, edited to its perfection, we're going to be submitting it to film festivals, especially the action film festivals, because there are a lot of cool action scenes in this film that I coordinated alongside Nick Herms, who's done amazing movies and stuff like that, like Transformers, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Three Kings. He's done a lot of things. He's a very talented man. And he was there on set with us coordinating the stunts. So the fights are awesome. You know, we have high falls, glass shattering, shootouts, fights, like just amazing. stuff, and so that's going to be submitted to film festivals everywhere. Hopefully we get accepted to a few. Hopefully we can win some awards. And then upon completion of that, it'll be going up on Amazon Prime to basically to be bought for, I think I'm looking at $3 right now a view, or to watch it, and so it'll be up on there. Hopefully we can make some money off of it, but more importantly, I wanted to make sure it wasn't priced too high so that people can enjoy it, because it was a fun time. It's a short film, and we had a great time shooting it. A lot of talented people on set. So,
And being a stuntman as well, have you had, like, what's the craziest thing you've done, if one strikes out to you?
Let's see, what have I done? I've done stair falls. I've been hit with glass bottles. I've been thrown off of ledges from the 15 feet falls. I've been hit by a car, fights, taking falls, wrecks, things like that. But I think the craziest thing that I did was, I would say, the stair fall, because it was metal steps and there was about 25 of them, and it was just, and this was in John Morrison's movie, Speed of Time.
So you were like, I got to step up for this.
Yeah. I was like, John's a good friend of mine. He trains with me, wrestling and parkour stuff. He's a good dude, man. And I was happy to be part of this film and do majority of the stunts in that film that I did myself. I played most of the bad guys, and it was just a good time. And the stair fall was probably the biggest one that I did.
Jeez. And how do you balance all of what you're doing right now?
Time management. The Marine Corps, being a drill instructor, taught me how to manage my time very well. I stay busy, I stay productive. I use every second of the day that I can use, every minute, every hour, etc. And I don't let time go to waste. I make time for what I feel is important, like this interview, for example, and I fit it into my schedule, and I keep pushing.
And if you could have a match with anyone ever, who would you want to have a match against? Like
dead or alive, or just alive? What companies? Like just in general?
Like anything. If anyone sticks out to you.
Oh, I mean, my favorite wrestler of all time is The Rock. He's the most electrifying man. I would love to have a match with The Rock just for that energy. Probably would never happen. I would say Randy Orton is another one that I would like to wrestle. More logical, more possible, I want to wrestle Jay White.
Yeah, for sure. He had a year of his career. I think that was 2019.
Yeah. I mean, he killed it in the G1 climax. So.
And then for my last question, if you had a match or two that you think really embodies who you are as a wrestler, do you have one in mind that you'd want people to check out?
Yes. Go watch any match from this New Japan Lions Break Crown tournament. I had a pretty good match at Primetime Live, my debut at Primetime Live with Kevin Martinson. That was a fun one. But if you just go watch any match from Lions Break Crown, whether it's my match with Barrett Brown, my match with Blake Christian, or my match with Clark Connors, you'll see everything you need to see about who Danny Limelight is.
And where can people find you?
I could be found on social media, Instagram, Twitter, at Danny Limelight. And if you want my merchandise, just go check out prowrestlingtees.com/Danny Limelight. I'm not hard to find. Reach out to me. I'm easy to communicate. My information is out there. And like I said, if you need something, just holler. I'm not hard to find.
And I checked some of the shirts out. They are wicked cool.
So thank you, man. I try to keep my designs, very different.
So I'll jump right into it. How have you been holding up with all coronavirus, and how have you been staying busy?
I've been all right. Since this started, I haven't really gone out anywhere. I've been trying to, especially recently, eat healthy, work out a lot, and that's really what's been taking up most of my time. Besides that, not doing much else, honestly.
And we take it all the way back. When were you trained, and what was the moment that made you decide, hey, I'm going to start pursuing wrestling?
When was I trained? I started training in 2017, around May, maybe April 2017. And then I started wrestling in August 2017. And what was the second part to that question?
What made you decide to start pursuing it and officially start training?
You know what? Nothing really made me start. I had some friends who were training, and I started coming around, and then it was just something happened, made me want to get in the ring. I think it was just because other people didn't want to take some move. And I was like, you know what? I can take that move. I got in the ring, and that really got the ball rolling.
And obviously, training, you could prepare for like certain moves and stuff. But once you're in there, like certain things you can't prepare for necessarily, like crowd awareness and stuff. Was there any certain thing like a variable like that you had trouble that you eventually overcame?
Honestly, no, not really. Nothing. I haven't really ran into any trouble along. I think that was something that I was mostly prepared for and good with, was crowd reaction and like being able to handle it. Maybe, maybe not being prepared for like how intense it was, perhaps, because I didn't expect much out of wrestling, but then crowds really started to get behind me and the stuff I did, and I was kind of just taken back by like the positive reaction. So maybe that, but I was maybe I took it well, but it wasn't something that I wasn't prepared for, I guess. I don't know if that's a good answer.
I gotcha. And was there a certain moment when you realized that crowds were really starting to get on your side?
You know, I wrestled a few matches as what some would call a heel, a bad guy. Those were my first few matches, but then like the second I started doing, I think it was like the first match I ever did where I was a good guy or a baby face, I think it's called. Really right then, because I came out, I was shaking my hips, doing dumb dance moves, being goofy, and like the crowd just started getting behind it right there. You know what? Maybe the second match from that, because the first two matches I wrestled as a good guy were in the same. It was at a Comic-Con in London, Ontario, and the first day it was 2 days in a row. The first day I wrestled and people were starting to get behind it, but then there was the second day where I came out and there were like the same people as the first day, and they were like as soon as I came out, they were already ready for me. They already cheering me on, and it was really, really cool. I think that was the first moment where I was like, oh shit.
For sure. And with like certain comedy wrestlers, I saw your match against Orange Cassidy, and I loved that. And you could just tell like the big thing, like even with him, like some people hate it, some, it was awesome to see, like, because the crowd was just so into that match, and it's cool to see like everyone, like I don't know if have you heard of Gentleman Jervis?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and there was like one match between him and Cassidy where it was just like I don't know, I loved when the crowd goes along with it, because there's certain like I love when you were doing the run around the ring, and then you got tired before you got there, and I loved that. Is there like you grabbed the water? Is like you think of the stuff beforehand and you're like, oh, if there's a water by, then I'll like ask for it, or do you just come up with it on the spot?
A little bit of both, I'll be honest. Like, because I don't know if someone's gonna have a water bottle, but like I just like I think doing something like that, I was just like, yeah, I'll get tired and like I'll be blown up, and like, what do you do when you're blown up? You're like, oh, I could use a water right now. So I just started asking people for water, and somebody handed me a water bottle. And I think that was actually the first time I ever did that, and I've done it a couple times since where I'm like somebody usually has a drink, so I'll like, I don't know if it's gonna happen, so I'll have to plan like a spot that could go two different ways. Like maybe somebody doesn't have a water bottle, but if they do have a water bottle, I'll take it and I'll do something with it or whatnot. So it's, I mean, again, it's all based off the crowd, so I never know what's gonna happen. But
for sure. And how'd you come up with your attire? I love it. It stands out. I love the colors.
I don't know. I really don't know. I just wanted to have something that was more unique than just like a plain singlet or trunks or tights. I wanted to have something different. And I think like I just had the, like in my head, I was thinking like a full body like a suit like Evil Knievel used to wear with like stars and stripes or whatever and like tassels, but then I like nixed some of the stuff, kept some of the same ideas. I kept like the collar, and I eventually landed on what I wear.
And mentioning Evil Knievel, do you have any big wrestling inspirations that you had growing up?
No, not really. I don't really have like everyone, like a lot of people ask me my favorite wrestler and stuff, and like I don't really have one because I was never the biggest wrestling fan. I didn't grow up watching it.
Really?
I got into it pretty late, like, and whenever I watched it, it was always like off and on. Like I watched it from like 2005 to like 2008, and then like stopped watching it, then watched it just sporadically. So
Yeah.
I don't really have a lot of wrestling inspirations, to be honest.
I got you. And I noticed you competed a bit in Canada and obviously in America. Do you notice any big stylistic changes between the two?
No, not really. Especially because I live so close to the border. I don't really see a difference because Canada's just like there's a lot of places in Canada that I'm closer to than places in America. And right. I don't think, I mean, it's all wrestling, so it's pretty much the same. And maybe like the culture is different. Like people have different ideas and different views on stuff based on like who they're trained by. But I don't think it has anything to do with it being in Canada compared to America. Yeah.
And a big moment of yours recently, you competed for AEW. What was it like being able to work for that company, and how did that come to be?
It was very cool. There was a really positive environment backstage at AEW. It was a lot of people I knew were there, so I was comfortable being around them because I've been in locker rooms with them throughout my career. So it was just a comfortable environment, I'd describe it as. And it came about when, so I was trained by The Blade on AEW. He's my trainer. And just talking to him, he like hooked up a couple of the other Buffalo brothers, such as myself, to go down there and do a couple weeks worth of shows for AEW. And that's pretty much how it came about.
I gotcha. And with working with AEW already, do you have any other big current goals that you'd like to share?
No, just to wrestle pretty much because the world's probably ending soon. So I like to do as much wrestling as possible before it all burns down.
I gotcha. And I don't want to take too much of your time. It's been an honor. Where can people find you?
Everywhere, on every social media, at Puff is God, Puff with one F. YouTube.com/Puff is God, Twitter, Instagram, all the other things. I don't know, Yelp. Puff is God on everything, Facebook and stuff, all those sorts of gimmicks.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Oh no, for sure. I got nothing better going on.
All right, man. Have a nice night.
You as well.
How have you been staying busy? Because obviously independent wrestler is kind of still in a pandemic. Some bookings obviously must have fallen through. So what have you been doing with that extra time?
Honestly, man, professional wrestling's starting to pick back up. I've been taking a lot more bookings than I was in the springtime, which I was kind of thankful that things slowed down and kind of took a pause because I was lucky enough to be able to get married during the pandemic. So but otherwise, really, even then, like whenever there was a pause, I stayed busy by training, by getting serious with my physique. I got in the gym and, well, I didn't get the gym. I made a home gym and I tried to get into the best shape of my life. And that's really what I did. Otherwise, I mean, obviously, being an independent professional wrestler, I'm not making millions. So I have a shoot job. Or a real job, and I was doing that and training as hard as I could. That's really it, you know?
For sure. And what I'm sure you're obviously very busy having 2 jobs and such. How do you manage that time?
Honestly, I have to plan out my days. 100%, I have to plan out my days. I try to normally get up, say, around 4 o'clock ish. I get up at 4. I start my day. I go to the gym, and then whatever hours of that day I have before I have to say going to work, I try to spend with my wife, or I read because I'm constantly just wanting to learn as much as I can, whether it be about professional wrestling or business in general, so that way I can apply it to it. And then I go to work, and after that, train and spend time with my wife. That's pretty much how I spend most of my days. Um, yeah, like I kind of have some side hustles as well I do to make extra money and to help pay the rent and to pretty much just go towards like my wrestling career as a whole. You know, I've been doing this for 7 years, and it's crazy because it just now I'd say started to click as far as like the business aspect of it. So yeah, I mean that's really how I manage my days and stay busy.
And you're saying bookings have been picking back up. How have they been, like, how, like, social distancing and stuff like that? Have you felt safe in most of the conditions you were in?
Oh yeah, 100%. If I didn't feel safe, I wouldn't be doing it. Um, but one thing that's been nice, and I think that Game Changer Wrestling really did a good job with setting the standard for it. Whenever they had their first show back in July, um, in July, they they were so strict on like social distancing, sanitizing the ring, and doing things of that nature. They were literally sanitizing. They sanitized probably like 5 times before the show even started. And we were granted it was an outside park space, and then after every match they were sanitizing. Um, seats were seats were like very well spaced out, and I was blown away by how Brett put that together. And I think that that set the standard for how independent wrestling shows ran and continue to run in a pandemic. TWE Chattanooga, which is a promotion that I own, we really took a lot of what they implemented within their practices of it and brought it here. Obviously, masks are required. We're sanitizing we're sanitizing after every single match, before the show, after the show, deep cleaning. Before you come in, you have to get your temperature checked. And that's even with our staff included. As soon as they come in, bam, pop them with it. Make sure that they're good to go. Masks, obviously, our staff has to wear them. And if we catch them with it down, we let them know ASAP, like, don't do that. You know, I think everyone in independent wrestling right now is doing their best to be able to, that way we can keep doing these things and not have a pause like we had. They're doing whatever they can to keep it going.
For sure. I even saw a picture, I think, back in July. I don't think it's the same show, but there was one, maybe it was GCW or something, where it was, like, on a football field. And, like, after, I think, the initial scare of how contagious is this, it was, like, you knew the guidelines of what you had to do, and you're seeing a lot of promotions really contour to what they need to do.
Yeah, I believe the show you're talking about is Warrior Wrestling in Chicago. Yeah.
That's what in Chicago. All right.
Yeah.
So we're talking future, but we take it way back in the past. What was the official thing that made you want to start training for wrestling?
So for me, really, it started with the love of it, and I developed that obviously at an early age, like most do, but it wasn't by watching wrestling on television. My grandfather and I, whenever I was younger, we loved to play video games together, which is funny because I'm not a gamer now. And I had a Nintendo GameCube, and he would take me to McKay's every few weekends. And I found this game called Legends of Wrestling. And on that game, I saw Ricky Morton and Hulk Hogan, and I was like, this looks insane. So I just like beat the crap out of Hulk Hogan as Ricky Morton. And then I was like, this is wild. So then I would go to the flea market as well with my grandfather. Like, that was a regular thing we'd do every weekend. And I saw a video of Rey Mysterio at the wrestling booth, which is where I would also develop my love of wrestling by just hearing stories and like watching what they had on the screen. And I found this Rey Mysterio DVD. I brought it home, watched the documentary on Rey, and it also had matches like most WWE home videos would. And I saw Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero, Halloween Havoc 97. And that match made me fall in love with it and go, I want to do that, because I was like, these are real life superheroes, you know, being against each other and doing all these amazing aerial moves. And it was so wild, especially at an early age like that, where most children are in love with Rey Mysterio, because it's the closest thing to, say, Spider-Man, or it's the closest thing to, say, anyone from the Marvel or DC universe. But then I started going to a local show in Ringgold, Georgia, which isn't too far out from Chattanooga. And I started going there as a regular. I was probably about like 9 or 10. And that's where I really started to go, okay, I want to do this, because I saw how they were reacting in person. And it wasn't like watching it on a TV screen. I was actually there living it. So I believe my grandfather, which you'll hear me talk about him a lot. I love that man to death. He is the absolute reason why I have the life I do. And I'm blessed to have him. But I digress. He had went up to the promoter of the show and had asked about training. And he had told me that the age normally to start training is 18. However, once I turned 14, as long as there was a waiver signed, I would be able to start training. So I had about 4 years before I was able to step foot in a ring and have my first day of training. So within those 4 years, I took on breakdance and tumbling for a little bit. Nothing serious, but it was a way to get kind of ready for it, because I never played sports as a child. I didn't play football, basketball, none of that. So I did that before I was able to actually step foot in a ring. And then whenever I turned 14, I believe it was August 3rd of 2012, oddly enough, because a year to the day I debuted in professional wrestling on August 3rd, 2013. Then began my journey to start training, though.
Really? So you said you started training at 14, and then you were saying a year later you had your first match?
Yeah, but it wasn't for the promotion that trained me originally.
Oh, what was that match like?
It was hard, because obviously I was the youngest on the show, and I had all sorts of nerves, because I was essentially stepping into a man's world at the young age of 14, 15, and it was very intimidating. The match was extremely grueling, because they definitely welcomed me into the business. Yeah. They beat the tar out of me, but they did it safely. But they really tested me to see if I really wanted it. And I respect them for doing that, because, we have to protect the business of professional wrestling and the sport as a whole. Because, you look online and you see some of the negatives about it. And even then, I don't believe that pro wrestling is negative. I think that there's just negative people, and we have to get them out. However, going back to, that match as a kid, it was one of the hardest matches of my life,
Yeah, for sure. And was there a certain moment when you realized that the crowd really started to get behind you and there was momentum later on, a couple matches later?
Yes. So in my first match, it was honestly the entrance. As soon as I came out, the crowd roared in excitement, because a lot of them knew who I was. I'm a hometown boy. And, I was the kid that always had the dream of wanting to be a professional wrestler, wouldn't shut up about it. I was just blab, blab, blab about it ever since I was younger. But the entrance, and then I threw a top rope drop kick. And at that moment, I knew, okay, I have them. I didn't realize it as, obviously at the moment, I was kind of okay, cool, they're reacting. But now I'm like, wow, I had them. And now I have to continue to give back to them for that.
For sure. And how old are you now? You hint 7 years ago, and this was the first time you're really starting to look at a business. So are you 21 now?
22.
So you're right for most people, you'd be in the beginning of your career. I mean, Diamond Dallas Page didn't start wrestling till he was 35,
Yeah, 100%. I'm somewhat considered a veteran within the area, which is very odd to me, but it's extremely awesome. I'm very grateful for it. I run training myself now for kids, so And I have some really good trainees that have came out of TWE Chattanooga here within like Aaron Wade, Cody Manhorn, Bailey Blake. So yeah, it's nice to be able to further myself within the career path, but also do it within different directions. Like, not only am I a performer, I am a booker, I am a owner, I am a trainer, I am a producer. And it's nice to be able to take on all these roles and really take on the business as a whole and not just under one direction.
So would you say, as like a big goal of yours, would it to be keep like building your own brand, or are you trying to go somewhere specific to then build your brand there?
You know, honestly, I for the longest time, I thought to myself, the only way that I will get recognition is if I sign a contract with the WWE, because for the longest time, that was the big goal. Now, I'm not saying that if I were to receive an offer from the WWE that I would turn it down by any means, because that, like I said, that's the big dream. However, with the playing field and how it is now, we don't need the corporations to get big, man. You know, you look at guys like Effie, you look at guys like Danhausen, like Warhorse, who's one of my toughest opponents I've ever faced. I love that guy. He's legit one of my favorite human beings. And you look at what they've done and what they've established and the money that they're able to make. Granted, they lost a little bit over the pandemic, but like I said, it was a little pause. Now they're on the upswing again. Now they're making that money. You see that, and it motivates you, and it makes you go, I could do this without a major company. So right now, I don't have any plans or desire to say sign with like a WWE or AEW, because there's so much going on the independents. You know, every single day there's another company starting up somewhere, and that's what's so exciting, you know?
For sure, and it almost reminds me of back. Obviously, wasn't alive when there was the territories, but you're starting
Neither
to see,
was I.
yeah, more and more companies are popping up. Almost like the business. I was talking to Rod Price a couple interviews ago. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but
Yeah.
he was talking about how the business was never meant to be just one company, and you're starting to see it grow more like it used to, where like you were saying, there's one promotion here, there's another promotion here, and it's cool to see it almost start revitalizing itself.
Yeah, for sure. Even if it's not within a territory system, I definitely like the system that is being put into place now. You know, it's just the independence, man. Like, we're all no longer starving artists. We're now entrepreneurs. We're businessmen. We're out here making our dough any way that we can in any way that we want. And that's the thing. We now control it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's nice in that regard.
And after like an average match, I'm sure you probably even have 2 or 3 matches sometimes in a day. What is your body like the next day?
Sore. 100%
Yeah.
sore. I've discovered the healing powers of Biofreeze and Epsom salt. So after like maybe say a long weekend, like the Collective last year, I'm in a very much a tough spot with my body. So yeah, like 100% like Biofreeze and Epsom salt and bath bombs and pretty much anything I can to be able to like revitalize my body and get me ready for say the next day or the next weekend.
And you texted me and said you got to a venue. I don't know if you have a show tonight or not, but before a match, how do you mentally prepare yourself?
Honestly, it just for me, like, this is gonna sound weird, I pray.
Not weird at all.
Yeah, I pray, man, and you know, I pray not only for myself to stay safe, but I pray for my opponent to be safe as well. I pray that we're able to tell the story that we look forward to telling, and you know, I just hope that we are able to leave a legacy behind that people can look back on. Otherwise, you know, that's really it. Like, I never. Like, it's so weird. Like, it's kind of like one of those things. Like, once I'm there, I'm there. Like, it's a mind space that just kind of switches as soon as I go out the curtain. Like, there's really no way I can prepare for it, you know?
Yeah, and you hear it sometimes. I don't know how true it is. Like when people are like in a ring or like in a football game, like the crowd almost goes silent. Does that ever happen to you where you just get so focused you can't hear anything else?
Yes, 100%. I've had family come and see me. that's never seen me wrestle before, and they'll be like, I was yelling for you. I'm like, well, I couldn't hear you. I was so zoned in. Because in that moment, it's go time. It's time for me to tell a story and leave every single fan that bought a ticket wanting to come back and clamor for more.
And being around Chattanooga, I'm sure you've been to a lot of the promotions around there. But if there was one state and also one country that you haven't performed in that you want to, do you have any in mind?
Yeah, as far as the state I would like to go to, I would really like to go to Washington. There's a show up there called Without a Cause that's doing really good stuff, or With a Cause Wrestling. They're doing some really good stuff, and plus I would like to go up there and wrestle talents like there's a guy named Jaden up there, which is funny enough. He spells it with a I, so it's Jaiden. And then I would want to go up there and wrestle, like, say, a Daniel Makabe. As far as a country I would like to wrestle in other than the United States, I would love to go to the United Kingdom. I would love to go over to England and wrestle and learn that style, because it's always been something that's so interesting to me.
For sure, like the strongish style, like the like Japanese wrestling has. Do you have any wrestlers over there that you are inspired by?
As far as the British scene is concerned, I would say, like, more currently, I love Pete Dunne. I think Pete Dunne is one of the best performers of our time. Johnny Saint. Johnny Saint would be the one from, like, the olden days of professional wrestling, like the world of sport, that I fell in love with by his style. I love technical wrestling, you know, so that style definitely inspired me through his work.
Now, some people think, you were talking about technical wrestling, that it's gotten almost like too dramatic in a way, like you get a Canadian destroyer and you're up moving around in 2 minutes. Do you agree that it needs to go backward in time a little bit, or do you think that there's a place for everything in wrestling?
No way do I think it deserves to go back in time a little bit, because right now wrestling, in my opinion, is at its peak. Like, it's at, like, its highest peak, which is so nice, because yeah, if we go back in time, that's awesome, but, like, so many things could also go wrong if we do that. Like, there was a lot of scrutiny a long time ago, so do we go back to the scrutiny of it? No. I think that professional wrestling is like an ice cream parlor. Whatever flavor of ice cream you want, by all means, have it. I know a lot of people enjoy comedy wrestling, so by all means, like, if you enjoy watching, say, Colt Cabana or Kikataru or Grado, yes, I love that. Deathmatch wrestling, 100%. That fast-paced, hard-hitting style like you're talking about, where it's like Canadian Destroyer, get up, blah, 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 blah. Like, I 100% think that all has a place in professional wrestling. Just because it's not my style doesn't mean that I don't agree with it, though. I just think that it's all depending on the audience that you look to cater to.
For sure, and I think that's, in my opinion, why AEW is the current, like, my favorite promotion, because they have almost everything. They have the deathmatch style with Moxley and Darby Allin at times. They have the Canadian Destroyer stuff with the Young Bucks, and I think it's real nice how they have a mix of everything. And obviously, no style is 100% perfect, and there's going to be flaws here and there. But I think you're totally right, where I think you even see it with Sin Bodhi. He has freak show wrestling.
Yeah, I love Sin Bodhi, yes.
It's a total, curveball to wrestling, but I think it's anything can be entertaining. It's just depending who's painting the picture, I suppose.
Yeah, and I get so annoyed with the fact that people think that pro wrestling needs to revert back to its old ways. I think that, oddly enough, professional wrestling should be viewed as anything but professional wrestling. I think it should be viewed through the lens of a weekly episodic television show, say like a Monday Night Raw. Or, better yet, instead of going to wrestling to look at it, like Friends, like The Office, like NCIS. I think it should be filmed through the lens of, say, entertainment and music. I think it should be seen through the lens of a comic book. Because at the end of the day, it's whatever you want it to be. I don't think pro wrestling has to be just wrestling.
For sure. And then even people saying go back, and I think some people forget it's originally started on the carnival scene with where the term carny came from and stuff.
Yes. Yep. 100%.
If you were looking back at your career, I'm sure you have a bunch of your own favorite matches, but do you have one or a couple you tell people to watch if they want to learn more about your style?
I always tell people to watch myself and Jason Kincaid from Innovate Wrestling, myself and Warhorse from the Scenic City Showdown, and then another one I love to tell people to watch is recently it was a match I had is myself versus Graham Bell. Graham Bell's a good guy that's coming up, and he's done work with like Wrestle One in Japan. He's wrestled for I think what's the big promotion down there in Mexico? AAA. He's worked for AAA. He got to wrestle in Arena Mexico. Like, he's a guy that I feel sometimes goes under the radar, but I'm super glad I've got to work with him. But those are the 3 matches right now I currently tell people to check out.
So I think I saw the match with Warhorse just a little bit ago, and I totally agree. I loved that match.
It was a lot of fun, man. Like I said, and that was that match was before he had even presented the actual change from Jake Parnell to Warhorse. Like, that was kind of like in the transition. So it's kind of funny that, like, I feel in a way like our careers kind of intertwined at that moment, because we got so much closer from it, and we both learned so much about ourselves from it, and we're able to apply that to our craft.
Absolutely. And I don't want to take too much of your time. Where can people find you, and do you have any upcoming bookings you want to tell people about?
Yeah, so if you are on social media, which I would hope most of you are, you can find me on Twitter at Jaden for Real. That's JADEN number 4 Real. On Instagram at Jaden1 Newman. That's JADEN number 1 Newman. Facebook page, you can like it. It's Jaden Newman -official. I have a TikTok. I don't post on TikTok frequently, but you can follow me on there as well underneath Jaden for Real. As far as upcoming bookings, I have tomorrow night, actually, Action Wrestling in Tyrone, Georgia. I will be taking on, as seen on AEW, Sean Dean. Saturday, I will be at the Scenic City Futures Showcase. I'm not in the tournament, however, I am wrestling Ken Dixon, who is a member of the Ring of Honor Dojo. He's one of their kids, which I'm very excited about. Ken has a very good name about himself. I'll also be performing at TWE in the nighttime, so I'll actually be doing 2 shows that day. And then Sunday, I have nothing going on, but I will be preparing for the Collective, which is next weekend. I will be wrestling for Southern Underground Pro, taking on Anthony Henry to kick off the Collective right after GCW presents Jimmy Lloyd's D-Generation F.
Well, I wish you luck, and honestly, this has been an honor. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Dude, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about what I love to talk about.
Have a nice night, man.
You too.